We have Mr. Ramkumar and Narinesingh joining us this morning to elaborate a little further on that. We will also talk about the scrap iron sector and what's going on there. All right, and try to connect all the dots. So we want to bring them in via Zoom. Morning. How are you going?
Hey, Stefan, morning.
Nice, man. So, we're going straight to it, eh?
Straight to it.
Ozzy Warwick, somebody that you should be familiar with. So he had a lot to say there, and a lot of things made sense. One of the things he mentioned was they are transferring the value of the worker, and all the value is in the pockets of the elite. And I could never forget that statement, encourage the rich to get richer so the poor can get jobs. He spoke about the value of your labor power, the value of the collective agreements, a very interesting fact that while unemployment is on the rise, companies are recording hundreds of millions of dollars in profits. So, over to you. Let's go.
All right, let's. I think our connection is a little bad, but I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible.
Right.
Let's first deal with what Ozzy's talking about in terms of de-industrialization. I think the population needs to have a better understanding as to what he's talking about.
Okay.
What Ozzy's saying there in simple language is close down local manufacturing of steel production and import steel. Close down local manufacturing of sugar and import sugar. Close down, sell the cement company and to a foreign entity and the money going out of the country. This is what Ozzy's talking about. And yes, the reason why I'm emphasizing this, Stefan, is because Trinidad and Tobago's population, quite often when you talk about the elites, you find there are sectors of the country that believe that it is the private sector or most of the private sector that is considered the elites. And this is why the labor fraternity, again, they need to emphasize what they are talking about, clarify what they are talking about. Now, the unfortunate reality, Stefan, is that the horse has left the stable. That is where we are.
Interesting.
You see, when you come to a place, Stefan, where you now have to resort to workers leveraging their service in order to get their just due, you failed. You failed as a negotiator and you failed as a representative.
Wow.
Now, does it mean that it's irrecoverable? No. The beautiful thing about it, Ozzy, Stefan, is that Ozzy, the team that they are quite competent at recovering.
Okay.
The problem that I see, Stefan, is that their focus remains based on a system that does not work anymore. Just putting people on the streets and marching and driving around in motorcades and all these things will not stop these issues.
So what will then? Because, so I was contacted yesterday and some people call him a phone and they say, Stefan, but, you have this, we don't think you understand the influence that you have, Bring out people, let me flood the street with people, let us march. And I was like, well, I don't think that's going to solve anything. And I was of the same opinion. I don't think it will solve anything unless it's done in a very specific way. All right, which I can't get into. But if that is not the solution, as you say, what is?
Stefan, the difference is you can't coordinate an approach segregating the workers from the population of the country. I think I mentioned this before. You can't.
Yeah.
So let me tell you, and I think I mentioned this, and I want to remind the population again of this. Roger Toussey, who was a Trinidadian that led the biggest strike ever in New York City, the subways shut down.
Yeah.
Did not do it by just merely leading workers. He did it by leading a nation, a city, where they shut down as industrial action to protest something that was happening that was against the interests, not just of the workers, also of the population of the city. And that's where we have, from the time you use language and you communicate information that's segregated. You see, Stefan, the people that we have to depend on for jobs It's not the government. The government is the worst employer in this country by virtue of statistics.
Well, I can't argue that with you, but go ahead, yeah.
Worst
Yeah.
employer. You saw the judgment, Stefan. You saw the judgment where the industrial court ruled that the public sector, the medical sector workers, it came across on the news last night, where the court was again instructing. This is a saying again because there are other judgments saying again that this contract work that they're using, the government predominantly uses, and claims that they have part-time employment. The worst employer in the country, the people that you have to rely on, is in fact the private business sector. Because these are the people that are coming up with the business ideas. These are the people, unions by their very nature do not create employment, Stefan.
Right.
And this is what we have gone past the system now where we now have a segregation in society, or we need to continue to emphasize that there must be a segregation. Labor must partner with the business sector that is really interested in taking this country forward. So we can now get rid of the people who have business initiatives that are not doesn't have the interests of the nation, and the worker sector that doesn't have, because there are workers as well that don't have the interests of this nation.
Yeah.
And we need to really now call a spade, right? And we have some public servants who work in the parliament who doesn't have the interests of the nation at heart.
Yeah.
For the decisions that they're making. Stefan, let me say this. Imagine in the height of the pandemic, I remember that there were people calling for the people, the workers who were dealing with the pandemic and the front line. And this wasn't just the healthcare workers, Stefan. This was the police, the fire, the
Yeah.
security, all the essential industries. But here the thing, when you the prime minister starts to segregate, you know what the prime minister did yesterday? It is all well and good to offer a bonus to the healthcare workers.
Yeah.
But you know what you're doing, Stefan? You just demoralize everybody else
Everybody else,
who
yeah.
contributes. You just did that.
Yeah.
You remember we had a session where we spoke about who's the most important worker, most
Right.
important person. And remember we identified that that is a false narrative.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as most
As the
important.
most important,
Everybody, and that is what the prime minister has done. So we have leadership in this country that continues to head in the wrong direction.
But-
and I'm really
But
sorry. Go ahead.
Let me just ask you this, right? On that note with the medical workers, right? The unions responded to the Prime Minister's promise of bonus money to health workers, saying it was long overdue. Now they're also calling on other debts owed to those workers, right? Now, Public Service Association President Leroy Batiste described the move as long overdue, but questioned the timing and platform of the announcement. And that's very important. The timing and the platform that it was announced on, right? Because we know the tricks that politicians have, right? But just on your point there, where healthcare workers specifically have been targeted for this bonus, and you're saying, okay, what about everybody else? What about all the other members of the public service? Because we know the negotiations going on, they can't get past 4% for now. Okay. So how should the unions respond to this?
Well,
have they responded correctly, or how should they respond?
no, but I think the union responded in a way that, of course, is in line with the interests of its membership. You would not refuse $500 or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But you must pay attention or remind the population and the workforce that this has nothing to do with that. There's an ongoing issue now. Let me point this out. Stefan, remember we said it here. First off, just as much as the Prime Minister is going to allocate in his budget to give these people a bonus, why can't he make arrangements and give these people what they are at the negotiation table now with their wage negotiation, whatever, what he is committed already to give? Why can't he just give it to them now? Remember we spoke about this 2 weeks ago, and I suggested you're offering people 4%, offering people whatever you're offering them. give it to them as an interim, as good faith, until negotiation is settled, so people can have some money, not just a $500 or a voucher here now, but give the people what you say that you could afford to pay. Why
Right.
are you detracting from that process by taking money now and segregating the workforce? Now, I want to say this, Stefan, in closing. Hear what I was going to say here.
Now we still have 4 minutes,
And
but go
remember,
ahead.
sorry, okay, remember
No, take
we
your time.
said this here, Stefan.
Yeah.
Remember we said this here. Let me tell you what's going to happen. The government is going to string along this negotiation process until the final hour, when their employment contract with the people of Trinidad and Tobago ends,
But that's in
and they are now
2025,
seeking.
Ramkumar.
Yes, Stefan.
Nah, they
Watch where
can't
they're going
string
to
that
wait.
along so long. No, man.
Stefan, watch me. You see that bonus? That's a piecemeal. That is for the grumbling to go down a little bit. You see all what's going on there, Stefan. All this distraction with him attacking the former commissioner of police. All those things are distractions. The goal is to string them along until 2024, 2025 on the 11th hour, and then they're gonna hand them maybe 8%, 9%. And because that's the statistical data, it will tell you that that's the average that they normally settle. Look at the history of it, Stefan, you'll see. And what will happen now is the people are trying to be will forget the suffering. The scrap iron workers will go past the 6 months and forget, because that's how Trinidad people operate, and that's the mistake we've made. You see, you talk about the biggest mistake. The biggest mistake we've made in this country, and we continue to make every time, is that we forget what these people do to us. And that's what's going to happen. And the labor fraternity will continue its call, but guess what? The workforce will forget. They will say, oh, no, no problem. We get settlement, man. We get we money. And remember, we said it here. Stefan. Negotiation. Wait, watch, and you'll see how this will go.
Yeah, but
And that,
you talking about a long string here, because this string had to be real long. Because we come into the end of August 2022. The election is due in 2025, unless they go and call an early election, which I very much doubt. I know that local government elections is coming up, but that's neither here or there. That never is. I think people more focus on a general election, which is until 2025.
general
so you're talking
election.
about the rest of 2022. You're talking about 2023, and you're talking about possibly mid 2024 is where they could possibly say, all right, look at 8%, or whatever it might be. So we're talking about almost 2 years stringing this along. Is that?
Stefan,
I mean, I can't see that.
listen, when you're cooking and you're real hungry, you know what you just do while you're cooking is snack. You know why they snack? You just fool your body. You just make it believe just now the food coming. Just now the food coming. That's what's going on. That's the politics we have in this country. And that's what the labor fraternity is struggling against. And the problem is the labor fraternity still does not have, they know this. We've sat in at that circle. We know exactly. Do you know that Keith Rowley is in power? The Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister Trinidad is in power on the backs of that labor fraternity.
Yes.
Look at the history. Look at
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
And so here's what. But the people trying to be no longer trust that fraternity to make the decisions that they don't support their opinions anymore. And the question, labor fraternity has to reevaluate its priorities, look at its approach, and it's high time that standard goes away from just that middle ground. They need to take a position. And come 2025, Stefan, we don't have a third option or a fourth option or a fifth option. You're going to have a lot of problems.
Wow. Just real quickly here, finally. Is
Yeah.
there any out for the scrap iron sector right now to get back, to reverse that decision by the government?
Okay. I can't answer from a civil law standpoint. It is very strange that I'm not hearing some of these attorneys who normally advocate for the constitutional and the enforcement of the constitution. It's very strange to see that everybody's silent. But I'll tell you this, Stefan. The constitution if anybody reads it, they will identify that you're not, when you consider the right of a person to earn their living with dignity. It says then in Section 1 of the Constitution, and I'm paraphrasing, that the interests at the end of the day, you're not supposed to set aside the interests of people in the interest of just by simply saying that it is in the wider interest of the population. There must be a balance. And what
Okay.
I see here is that the government has set aside the interests of a minority group by simply making a decision because the government has failed in its ability to manage the structure and put things in place for coordinating the operations of a particular industry. And the prime minister in a real nonchalant way says, "But we don't have the resources to protect everything in the country." But do you think, Stefan, that he didn't know that 10 years ago, or he's been a parliamentarian for how much ever years, that we need legislation? Faris was the king of legislation. What happened? Why he didn't bring legislation to manage that sector when they were bringing legislation to change all the other things?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
happened?
yeah.
So it's a joke. The truth is now the scrap iron industry, is going to feel that 6 months is going to go. I don't think that they're gonna really succeed because of the weight that the government holds in this.
Yeah.
But you remember when ArcelorMittal closed, and because ArcelorMittal came out in the public and said, we cannot afford to pay these gas prices that this country is leveraging on us. And I'm
Right.
paraphrasing, but there is a report they gave an official statement. It had nothing to do with the union closing. ArcelorMittal, the government refused to negotiate. So Ozzy is absolutely right in his argument that there's a process of de-industrialization. Problem is, again, Ozzy needs to make it more palatable for the nation to understand. And this is what
Yeah.
we talk about forex and all these things. So anyway, the point is, remember the scrap iron dealers at Trinidad and Tobago, they earn forex in this country.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I haven't heard anybody mention that.
Yeah.
When we sell the scrap iron, there's a reason why they never used to sell it to ArcelorMittal. There was no local market. They wanted to sell it. They always shipping this our way for the last
Yeah.
20, 30 years. All right. So I don't see that. Unfortunately, I think they're going to end up just like the former workers at ArcelorMittal, and this is going to go away into fade away into history, and it will repeat itself, Stefan. The
All right.
government will see this now as an opportunity to shut down any minority group by now constricting their ability to function. So now people are going to be nervous. You're going to see minority groups now are going to be very nervous about saying anything, because they're going to be worried about incurring the wrath. And that's a worrying trend.
Wow. All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. We're out of time, but thanks a lot.
Of course.
Until we chat
Of course,
again,
Stefan.
Industrial Relations
For
Consultant,
sure.
Mr. Ramkumar Narinesingh. Nice one. So,